Welcome to Supply Circles, stories from the innovators, disruptors and improvers in supply chain management today. Brought to you by AI Group.
Hello, I'm James Scotland, coming to you today from Yunganbar country, and this is Supply Circles, the business improvement podcast that asks the question, how can we in Australia create supply chains that are resilient and sustainable at a time when we're implementing the challenges of the 3Ds? Digitalisation to keep up with your peers in your industries, to find urgently needed efficiency improvements, and to meet the needs and expectations of your buyers. Decarbonisation to meet your legal requirements and targets by 2050, and diversification, the need to build a broader business base that is not overly dependent on any single relationship, whether it be a product, a technology, a supply chain, or an export market. Each fortnight, I delve into different sections of the end-to-end supply chain. I chat with fascinating and interesting people, and we try to have some fun along the way. Today is a Stories from the Frontline episode. This is the mini-series within the podcast series where I talk to a business owner or operator to get a frontline perspective of building sustainable and resilient businesses, to understand how the people at the frontline really are facing these challenges and building resilient end-to-end supply chains. My guest today is Gina Boyce Rowe, Chair of Everhard Industries. I first met Gina and Everhard when we were looking at conducting a supplier engagement audit with the company. I quickly realised Everhard's supplier engagement process was leading edge, and it was already employing first-class supply chain concepts such as circular economy and others. But there's a great backstory to Everhard. It's a 100-year-old family-owned business. So I'm delighted to have the boss on the line. Hello, Gina. Welcome to the show.
Hello, James. Thanks for having me here.
Some people might not know Everhard. I know Everhard because, I'm as old as the hills. And when I was a very, very young boy, my grandmother had a laundry in a shed out the back of her house. And in that laundry, she had all sorts of weird things, including a roller where you rolled the clothes through it, and a old washing machine that was hard to describe. But they also had two concrete tubs, a twin tub made of concrete, which I'm sure had the logo Everhard on it. Is that probably right? Tell me about Everhard. What's the story?
Yes, it certainly would be right. So especially for Queenslanders, the concrete laundry tub is well known, and as you said, found in the laundry that was underneath the house, usually underneath a Queenslander. And today we still sell laundry tubs. They obviously look very different, and those concrete laundry tubs that were our very first product, you'll see them on Facebook and Gumtree and things as being sold as herb gardens or horse troughs. But we started out life as Everhard Concrete, which is how over the years we've evolved, being called Everhard Industries, as our product range has grown. But concrete or precast concrete is certainly in our bloods, and it's always been part of the business and was there right at the beginning.
So it's a Brisbane-based company founded by your great-great-granddad or something like that?
Yeah, so Brisbane-based with manufacturing on the north side of Brisbane at Geebung, and then branches and agents nationally. But it was my great-great-uncle that founded the business, and then it went on to, my great-grandfather and down to my grandfather and another great-uncle. And we started life out near Breakfast Creek and from Bulimba, and then moving to near Breakfast Creek at Albion, where they'd have to move the stock regularly if a high tide was coming and things. All the stock had to be lifted if there was a king tide coming. And that was normal operations. But then from the 70s, we've been at Geebung on the north side of Brisbane, which at the time was considered an awfully long way away. And now it's a big industrial area and increasingly surrounded by housing.
Well, I didn't know that. I'm not from Queensland, not from Brisbane. And the first time I went to your factory, I had no idea it used to be a long way out. It was just in the city as far as I was concerned. But I think the company has been underrepresented in the history of Australia because I was in New South Wales. I grew up in Sydney, and that's where my grandmother was. And she had, I'm sure I can see Everhard on the side in blue writing. And it's an important part. I mean, the Hills Hoist get a really good rap. They've got a good part of history. And, the Queenslander houses themselves have got a pretty good rap as well. Windmills and all sorts of things. But those twin tubs, they were critical to the survival of our forefathers.
Yes, and they were very cutting edge at the time as well.
Really?
Previously they were almost like wooden troughs. So then to do a precast concrete laundry tub, I know it doesn't seem very fancy these days, but at the time they were very cutting edge. And then during World War II, I am told, obviously I wasn't around, but we actually for a short time made concrete bathtubs because of the materials shortage, but you could still get, still batch and make concrete. So it's a bit scary to think they were taken up into houses. And anyway, there was no injuries from these concrete bathtubs, but they were, so during World War II, that was something we briefly made as well with the materials shortage. Yeah,
it's one of the things we've been talking about in this podcast. David Martin was on the show a few episodes ago, and he was talking about innovation. And innovation is a thing that Australians have been doing since we got here. We didn't rely on established practices. We had to just keep innovating, including leading edge, concrete tubs. You're much more than concrete tubs now. What else do you do? You've got a wide range of products.
We are. We're certainly a lot more than concrete tubs now. It was the late 70s, sort of early 80s that we went into plastic injection moulding, which at the time was huge risk and huge debt when I think about it, to do that. But that totally changed our market and our footprint. And I guess, precast concrete is heavy. It's the freight and transporting is always somewhat limiting to where you can get your product. And then, so that saw us going into polymer injection moulding. We've got all the we have some laundry tubs that we still make ourselves, but then we went into also wastewater treatment, polymer septic tanks, as well as the precast concrete septic tanks. And we do import some product from China for our laundry cabinets that are then assembled in Australia. And we have vanities, toilets as well, and a huge amount of surface water drainage, which we manufacture here largely with recycled materials, which a lot of people would know our Channel and Grate, and there's stormwater pits and lots of products that are related to plumbing, water, laundry, wastewater, septic and precast civil products too. So we're quite diverse and broad, which sometimes I think we're 98 years old. Maybe would you have such a diverse product range if you were setting us up today? Possibly not, but it's our history and legacy.
Yeah, and consequently the title Everhard Industries, because you're across a number of different activities. Tell me about yourself. You're the chair of the board of Everhard. You're a direct descendant. Was it always written that you would be the chair?
No, it certainly wasn't. So I'm part of the fourth generation of family owners, and it's probably unusual that we're 98 years and we have only 3 shareholders, myself, my mother and my brother. It's probably less complicated but unusual. And as a child, I always knew about the business, and I'd hear my grandparents and my parents and uncle and aunt and things speaking of the business, but I was never directly involved, which often, I think being a girl, I wasn't invited to work in the business in school holidays. My brother was. It was never discussed that I would, or considered, which was, I think, just a bias of a lot of that generation. And women in manufacturing weren't nearly as common, and it certainly wasn't encouraged then, whereas now things are quite different. So I went off and did my own thing, whereas my brother did an apprenticeship through the business and worked in several operational roles. And I went off and did nursing and then specialised in critical care and intensive care. So not really related to manufacturing.
Yeah. No. More repair than manufacturing.
Yes, yeah.
But that's sign of the times, I guess. And the company has evolved as society has evolved. And, whereas back in those days, to quote a term, it was never thought of that, well, she might be a descendant, but she's a girl, so she's not going into manufacturing. Whereas now the times are, look at you, the other chair.
Yes.
You can imagine.
Yeah, when I started, I do feel sorry for my mother was for years trying to do a lot of work on succession and planning, which many family and private owned businesses know.
So your mum was in the business?
Yeah, so she and my uncle was in the business as well, and then had unfortunately had motor neuron disease and sold his shares and had exited. And my mum had been trying to do a lot of work on succession, and in the 90s she insisted that we have a board, which so from about 94 we've had a formal board. I think she was telling my grandfather, no, if we're doing this, we're doing it properly and we're not having proper meetings and agendas. And she, in the early 90s or mid-90s did the Australian Institute of Company Directors course and told her dad, no, we're doing this properly. And then was Queensland sales manager as well as director. But she had been trying to do so much work with succession because my grandfather and his brother had a falling out in the 80s, and then my grandfather ultimately bought my great uncle out, but the families were never the same. And Sue, my mother, was really trying to avoid that past mistake or arguments and things. She didn't want the family torn apart, so she was really trying to work hard on succession and having a clear pathway and direction and deliberate goals. And it's just sad which it happens, but it's sad that the families were never the same after that falling out between her dad and her uncle.
Yeah, I did a lot of work. I did about 10 years of work helping businesses in remote Australia access the global markets and things. And I come across that situation a fair bit. There was one classic situation where I turned up at a farmhouse of what would be in any description a large business.
Yes.
But it was a farmer. It was a primary producer. And the dad, who had been farming all of his life, was sitting around a kitchen table when I got there with his son, who had just finished the business degree at UQ, I think, in Queensland anyway. And the two had been arguing about the best way to take the business forward. And I listened to them for a couple of hours, and they'd been discussing this for ages. In fact, to pick up your point, the women, their respective wives had left them. They said, we're just sick of this argument, and left. And so they were still sitting there bickering.
Yes.
And I listened to the arguments, and I said after a couple of hours and a few cups of teas, I said, I think you're both right. You've both got strong arguments. And Dad said, I'm not giving up control. He might be right, but I'm still going to do it my way. And I said, and the son said, he just doesn't listen. And I said, here's what we do. We set up a board. And Dad is the chairman of the board. And you're the CEO, son. You have to sell your ideas. If you can't sell your ideas, you can't get them across. But Dad, you're the chairman of the board. You've got legal responsibilities. You have to listen now. Anyway, a couple of years later, we went back and they were booming. It was a big business. It's a good global producer now because they were both right, but they couldn't get out of that way. It's good to see that you worked in a way in which to resolve that.
Selwyn, my grandfather, certainly struggled, even though he wasn't the founder, he was in the business. Oh, it's just, he lived and breathed in business even well into his 80s. And even though he wasn't the founder, he was the one that built it up and took us into new industries and new sectors. And exporting outside Australia, but he didn't want to let go. So yes, when we first had a board, he had a permanent governing directorship, which people look at you a bit aghast if you say that these days, and they certainly don't exist now. They wouldn't be agreed to, but yeah, there was certainly resistance there, and he did have trouble, I guess, which many founders can have trouble letting go. But Sue was all about and is about succession and planning and having processes and policies in place. So yeah, she just didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. Yeah.
So Nurse Gina spent a couple of years in the business and then took over as chair. I imagine Mum said, "Here, so yours, Gina. I'm going to go have a rest now. Enough of this." What did you find? Did you sit there and think, "Oh my goodness, what have I done?" Or were you excited by it? Or what was the feeling when you stepped up to chair?
So when both my grandparents had passed away, we had discussions with Sue, my mother, about, what are we doing? Either we really pay a lot of attention and put time and energy, or we get the business ready for sale. So, and it wasn't a forced decision. Yes, my brother and I could have said, no, this is not for us. Let's get it ready for sale. But we after many conversations and things, definitely chose, yes, that we're passionate about Australian manufacturing and Everhard Industries and the family legacy. But yeah, when I first started attending board meetings, I do say it as a joke, but at the time I was serious. I used to think I'd just rather be coordinating a cardiac arrest than sitting in this board meeting, which is...
I'm sure you're not the only person that's had that thought. I'd rather be in a car accident than this.
Yeah, but that's because... ICU, intensive care and medical emergencies were what I knew, and I'd done lots of extra study and I was comfortable there. So, and I did attend many board meetings and spend more and more time in the business, obviously before I was chair, and I was deputy chair before becoming chair, and we called it an executive traineeship where I spent different amounts of times in each division of the business, and working in our manufacturing and out with sales staff and visiting branches and trying to get a real feel of how things worked and operated, and a bit of a mentor role from Sue, my mother, and also another director on our board who's very experienced, who was very generous with their time with me and meeting before board meetings and pulling out areas of focus and what their questions would be and if we were aligning and discussing challenges. But I also did study. I did some study through the Family Business Association, who we find great, and then through Australian Institute of Management, some finance courses, and then Australian Institute of Company Directors course. And then I did do a grad cert of business management, which I still think I should probably turn into an MBA, but it's on a list. Yeah.
Yeah, and Family Business Australia is a wonderful organisation. We put that company that I was talking to in contact with them, and they helped them evolve into a proper business rather than a kitchen table business. You said that it's a diverse and broad product range, that it's a result of history. Tell me about the business. How's it structured? You have you buy some stuff from overseas, you make some stuff here, do you? And then you sell it through Bunnings and whatever. How does it work?
Yeah, so up until the mid-90s, everything we sold, we made. But it was really in the mid-90s that it was just, you couldn't compete, especially with China. Wasn't going to be cost effective, and that's when
I'm sure that was quite a difficult decision. I can hear your grumpy old grand uncle or something or so saying quite firmly, "No, everything's got to be made here. We don't buy anything from China." But eventually worked it out.
Yes, because we even would have the powder coating line where we were powder coating all our laundry tubs and cabinets ourselves, and everything we sold we made, which he was rightly so proud of. But it was the mid-90s when we started importing some product for our laundry tubs and cabinets from China into Australia, and then the assembled in Australia. We also have some vanities and toilets that are imported. But then we have, all our manufacturing here at Geebung, which is our stormwater pits, the surface water drainage, and then the precast concrete division. And then we largely sell our products into merchants, so the likes of Bunnings, Reece, TradeLink, Samios, many, Harvey Norman Commercial, Plumbing Plus, Cooks, all those largely sell to merchants and not selling direct. Some of our wastewater treatment systems and precast products we sell direct, but the bulk is via merchants.
Transport must be an issue for you, though. As you said, they're heavy and bulky in many cases, and your rotomolds are very bulky, I guess. So transporting them around Australia must be complicated. Do you have any other manufacturing plants somewhere to reduce the cost of transport, or is it all just local?
We have some assembly of our products so all our branches, office and warehouse. So there's assembly of products interstate, but the manufacturing is here. But it is always a challenge especially when you've got national contracts. And as you know, Australia is huge and vast. So if we're, servicing a customer that we're trying to get product to Perth and to North Queensland and to the NT and South Australia, it's certainly challenging. And the cost of freight, which so many people now, merchants expect free into store generally, and it's hard to recoup those costs. And you're always trying to, talk to suppliers and we can't freight air, like the Tetris of a truck to get to all that product there safely as well.
Yeah, so you've got to build it into your cost structure, and it's a big cost. You've been buying some equipment. Is that still scary? You mentioned before that when they bought some equipment a while ago, it was a big challenge for the business. You've been buying recently, I hear.
So which was very exciting. It's a injection molding machine that makes our 3,000 and 4,000 litre polymer tanks, which was due for replacement. The machine was was 29 years old and was purchased by Selwyn, my grandfather. And the family were somewhat nostalgic and sad to see it go, but we were probably the only ones sad to see it go because it had that direct link with Selwyn. But it was time for just the innovation in terms of just power use and less oil and faster cycle times. But the machine was huge and so heavy it needed its own ship from China, and we increased our insurance when it was on the water.
Wow.
And there was so much. The concrete slab had to be reinforced, and the decommissioning of the machine that it replaced, we had to have 5 months worth of tanks. So we had half of Brisbane. It felt like half of Brisbane. We had tanks spread around as we had to hold all that extra stock while we couldn't manufacture. So we had little plots of land. I used to see tanks on the way to dropping kids to school, and then it was a factory around the road. We had some tanks so we could supply our customers while the machine was being decommissioned and the new machine being commissioned. So it was a huge project and investment for us, an exciting one, but there was lots, and the site was so congested, and staff were upset over loss of car parks and the traffic management plan being challenged. But it'll set us up for the future to have that new machine, and it was time that it happened. And we even the kids, the fifth generation, all actually put their handprints in the new concrete slab, which was lovely to do. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. That's nice. I'm just laughing about all these concrete products spread all over Brisbane.
Yeah, it was our polymer tanks that we had to have 5 months. So we had various.
Oh, the polymer.
Polymer tanks. Yeah, so we had to. We leased all these little spots of land to store these tanks while we were making 5 months supply. Yeah.
When I was working in remote, always seeing big tanks going past on flatbed trucks. It's a big product in a land where there is not much water.
Yes, yeah, and then it's the wastewater treatment, which is we've put a lot of, I guess, time and research into a new, more advanced wastewater treatment system, which is exciting. And then there's lots of applications for, as well, you probably know, lots of Australia isn't sewage, so they need these wastewater treatment systems, and they're far more friendly with the effluent, the output, or the water, I should say, that comes out of them. But yes, that can be reused on the garden and irrigated out. So, and I'm sure, as you say, water's becoming scarcer, and for Australia, it's only going to become a bigger issue.
Yeah, and that type of product will become critical. Water is going to become an issue in Australia and around the world. We should take a break. Before we do, what's it like being a mum, a business owner, a daughter? How do you juggle all the different competing needs?
Sometimes I think I need to be better at it. Yes, so I'm now I
am 100%. I can confirm 100% that every woman in your position feels exactly the same way. Everyone I've ever spoken to is the same thing, and the guys too. I mean, it's just hard to compete.
Yes.
With all those different priorities. Yeah?
Yes.
So how do you do it?
I know. Besides, I shouldn't say that I could be on an oval, a sports oval, taking work calls, and could be doing an online meeting at home with a guinea pig shoved onto my lap, trying to. But I've certainly had a lot of support from Sue, who's the main shareholder, and I've had babies in boardrooms at times, and from the board. But then that flows down to the values that we want to share throughout the business. And I couldn't have done what I've done without the family support, and then the board that flows to the board and the management. But often I think, I don't have enough time, and I need to be more organised with the kids at home, and then feeling bad because you missed some presentation at assembly, or and then I'm probably not as good as I should be at asking for help either, and outside of work.
Well, that's very honest, and I appreciate you saying that. But also nice that you got such support around you. And I know Everhard, the company, knows that it's a family-owned business. They feel that family impact on it. The kids in the boardroom type stuff. The importance of family.
No, it's very important to us to maintain that feel of a family business, which is hard when you don't have many family members. We're not in operational day-to-day roles, but we try to be seen and try to want our staff to know they can talk to us if there's an issue, that maybe there's something we can work out and help them come to a solution if there's something outside of work that's impacting them at work, and try to just be seen and live those values for everyone to see.
And your senior management have that understanding that that's required. They need to run a family business. I think that's good. I like the business. Let's take a break, and when we come back, I'll talk about what the board's been up to.
Thank you.
If you have supply chain or business improvement challenges, contact AI Group's Business Improvement and Growth Hub. The Big Hub is a library of practical and relevant resources designed to assist member businesses to grow and improve. The Big Hub also includes an extensive network of experienced, pre-qualified business improvement consultants. For more details, contact big@aigroup.com.au. That's big@aigroup.com.au.
I'm talking to Gina from Everhard Industries, a 100-year-old business that continues to grow, expand, and make brave choices and brave decisions. It was a great story that you just told us about your big investment. Can I ask you about the important issues that are facing boards of your type of business at the moment? And that one of them is decarbonisation. We have a target of businesses have to be net zero by 2050. And more and more of the community and more of businesses are starting to say to suppliers like yourself, what's your footprint like? How big a deal are you going to have on our net zero positioning? Can we still deal with you? What are you doing to improve? Has that come into your business yet? And how are you handling it if it has?
Yes, no, it definitely has come into our business. So we've had an audit. We partnered with a group to do an audit of our waste and our electricity and water usage and gas, and now we're trying to pull all that together, and we now have a sustainability plan, which then feeds up to an ESG strategy. And we did find there's a lot of things we were doing already, but you don't necessarily pull it. We hadn't really pulled it together into one thing, but we might have for years, recycling steel and cardboard and concrete, precast concrete waste to be reused in road base and solar on the head office and things like that. So we're probably, when you do the audit and pull it all together, there's quite a lot that we were doing already that you don't always reflect on. But now it's trying to pull it into one big strategy.
Yeah. I think that's really wise words. And I've heard that before, where you think, oh, my goodness, we're not doing anything, so we're going to have to start somewhere. Let's just get an audit done and see where we start. And they discover that they've actually done a fair bit. Like I say, solar's already on the roof. Yes, we're recycling our wastewater. We're doing a whole bunch of different things. That's not as scary as it sounds, but it is important that you do it. Is it monitored by the board, or is it the board just organised for a line in the sand and now it's up to management?
It is monitored. So out of the audit now, we're trying to pull together a timeline and targets and priorities, and obviously it's got to be based on a budget because, we just don't have millions to throw at ESG. It's got to be staged and also has to be cost effective for the business. So we are passionate about it, but it's got to be cost effective and staged. But we have found there's quite a few low hanging things that you can do, like say with APCO and our packaging, and we're APCO members, but now we're working with suppliers. We're working with the local supplier with our packaging, and then working with our external suppliers about what we require for packaging standards, and just things like trying to use our data analytics that we're installing on machines to see what savings we can get. In a lot of the new machines, we can control the electricity use and peak demand better, and or smart energy metering. So there's a lot of small things and low hanging fruit that I think that we will be able to do, and without spending, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to get them across the line, and then to have that benefit to the business and the customer.
Yeah. That is the challenge. That your business as usual to maintain, and yet there is massive changes to be made. So balancing the cash flow and the planning of that is important. Yeah, interesting stuff. You mentioned digitalisation. That's one of our Ds. Yes. Decarbonisation is one. That second one is digitalisation. There's a saying, I think David Martin said it, a few others have said it on this podcast, that there is no decarbonisation without digitalisation.
Yes.
And what they're saying is that you can't measure a number, net zero. You can't get to zero unless you know what the number is. You've got to measure everything.
Yes.
Sounds like you're already way down that path. Can you talk to that for a few minutes?
Yeah, that's true. Digitalisation and decarbonisation are just linked, aren't they? We're not at the point where I can tell you our overall carbon footprint, but we're certainly, yes, as you say, on the way. And then it's 2027 that we need to be ready in terms of the legislation and ESG reporting. So we're hoping. Wow,
that's not very long. That's not very long at all.
I know it'll be here before we know it, and I imagine a lot of our big merchants will already be. At some level, they ask us to do with things like modern slavery already. So I think it's going to be similar in terms of information we'll have to give them with carbon footprint. So we're trying to be prepared for that and, yes, on the front foot. And in the last 5 to 10 years, there would have been huge changes really with how we do things in terms of we use the NetSuite ERP system now, and we've recently changed to Salesforce CRM, which is a big project. And hopefully, we're going to see huge benefits with how we understand our customer and efficiency for our sales staff. But and then there's a warehouse management system that's been implemented, and more data analytics on the machines. Yes, so there's probably not an area that hasn't been touched. But
so all your managers are working with a fair bit of data now. They're not working off gut feel management. It's now data driven.
Yes, that's certainly. I mean, we can always do more and always improve, but I think whether it's manufacturing or marketing or people and culture, there's we're trying to have the data to be informed and make those decisions. And then, I mean, in manufacturing, just even the maintenance system is, now it's not an Excel spreadsheet or a paper form. It's a maintenance management system. And then in new product development, they might be doing 3D prototypes, 3D printing prototypes. And we're trying to see if we can incorporate that into some of our manufacturing, the 3D printing. Yeah, so I think at all areas of the business, they're definitely impacted by new technology and digitalisation.
Yeah, this is a great story because a 100-year-old Australian business, family owned, and it defies all of the things that we're hearing. It is a manufacturing company. It is an advanced manufacturing company. It is managing both import and local production. You're digitalising. You're decarbonising. You're not fighting it. You're going with it. And you remained a family-owned business. It's you break all the rules, really, Gina.
I don't know. You make us sound too together there, James. Yeah.
Well, it's a good story, though, but it's not perfect. It's evolving, but it's an exciting thing. What did you learn during COVID?
During COVID, I think for a lot of manufacturers, it may have been similar. We were planning for the worst and, thinking, oh, my gosh, how much leave do people have? And if we're shut down, how long can we keep all our staff employed and paid? But then, we weren't shut down, and it was COVID for us was one of our busiest times, and all our plastics manufacturing basically operated 24/7. Now we're 24/5. And everyone was staying at home looking at things that are annoying them. So they wanted to fix them and do some DIY and renovation. And they had holiday money that they couldn't spend on holidays to fix up stuff at home. So that was good for us. And it was amazing out of the teamwork that sometimes you would see because of so many people were off sick we had managers on forklifts many times, or if you had a forklift license, you were on the forklift no matter what your role was. It was like a golden ticket when we were so short-staffed. And people really pulled together nationally, I think, which was a good thing of COVID. And then I do think in hindsight, maybe for planning, budget and strategy past COVID, it would have been good in some ways to pull out those COVID figures because they weren't normal.
Yeah, they were skewing.
They were skewing. Sure. So then in hindsight now, I think, should we, for budget and strategy and cash flow, should we have pulled those out because they were making it all look so different? But anyway, that's hindsight. Yeah. And we did hold an awful lot of stock then too, which was good in that time. But now we've certainly changed how much inventory we're holding, and we've changed our ordering to free up the cash.
Yeah, we saw that from the AI Group's CEO survey.
Yes.
for last year, or what they expected this year. I think it's called the Industry Expectations Report.
Yes.
You'll find it on the AI Group website. But what it came down to was CEOs were saying that they're reducing inventory. They're going to protect margin rather than protect inventory. During COVID, we increased everything we possibly could because transport was so difficult. But now we're back to lean and mean and back into the scary area of limited inventory.
Yes, yeah, which we've certainly pulled our inventory down significantly since COVID, and trying to be. Yeah, then you've got the other side of when there's all these delays and because of maritime union disputes or, you don't have the same inventory you're holding to reduce out of stocks, but you've got the cash. So,
yeah, there's a risk. There's a risk attached to it. There's no doubt, and I'm sure the board is looking at the risk versus the cash versus the reward of having the inventory on place compared to the cost of it. Complex business. Thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed this chat. What's next for Everhard? What's going to happen to Everhard over the next 10 years, do you think, or whatever time frame you look? What do you think is going to happen?
So we're 98, so 2 years off our 100th. So we're planning 100th birthday.
Free concrete tubs for the whole of Australia, for every Australian.
There you go. And then what's the theme and messaging in that, James? Yeah, we're trying to, certainly really excited about the 100th birthday, and we're trying to really set ourselves up for the future for innovation and a pipeline of new products, which we just constantly need, but we have struggled with Selwyn. My grandfather, when he left the business, we've struggled to formalise that. He just did it innately and was so passionate about it. So we're really trying to set up that we have a pipeline of new products always coming through that are different, generating different revenue and margin. And our next big thing, we need the next big thing. And to set up for the fifth generation are already learning about the business and having some education and involvement, but they're all a bit young to...
Including the girls, no doubt.
Yes, well, ironically, which my grandfather, I don't know if he'd, see the funny side or what, there's 5 grandchildren in that, well, my mother's grandchildren, 5 girls and no boys. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
That's just rude.
Yeah. So there's some irony in that, but but they certainly, I mean, they come to Christmas parties and draw raffles and sometimes hear too much and understand more than you think, and you think, oh my gosh, be quiet, you can't say that here to the kids. When they've clearly understood more than you thought they had. Yeah.
That's just the way of the world, though. No, they learn a lot early, I understand. Well, that's fantastic. I appreciate the conversation. Do you like being chair?
I do like it. I find it's there's certainly challenges sometimes, I think, that pop up during the week that I wasn't thinking I'd be dealing with that week, but I like the variety. I think coming from nursing, I sometimes find it a bit lonely because in nursing there's a lot of teamwork and people. So, but I have other colleagues or business colleagues and family business groups that I engage with outside the business. So you can share and advise and not have the loneliness that sometimes you can have at executive or board level.
It's a lonely position because you have to make a lot of decisions on your own. Whereas you say in other activities such as nursing, you make a lot of decisions as a team.
Yes.
Well, I think you've done very well, Nurse Gina. I think you can. I think you can be happily trade in your nurse hat and call yourself chair, Gina. You're doing a great job. So thank you very much, and thanks for doing a good job on this podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, James. Thanks for your time.
It's a pleasure. Well, that's it for another episode of Supply Circles. Thanks again to everyone for listening, and thanks for your feedback. If you have any feedback on today's interview with Gina or ideas for the show, or just want to give me some feedback, hit me up at james.scotland@aigroup.com.au or head over to my LinkedIn page. I'd love to hear from you. And we'll be back in a fortnight with more business improvement insights into the keys to building sustainable supply chains. Thanks for joining me. This is Supply Circles. I'm James Scotland. Bye for now.